Welcome to the Two Marketing Moms podcast. Today's guest is Amos Gelb. Amos is a former award-winning TV journalist who today runs the premier experiential media program for college students. For over 2 decades, he's been a bridge for students between what they learn in college and what they need to succeed in the workplace. Graduates of his program are today generational leaders in their professions, ranging from journalism and content creation to political communications, PR, and tech. Welcome, Amos.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about why we picked this topic to chat about today. You go first.
Well, it's a vital topic. It's very apropos for me because I have a whole new cohort coming in, and every time it's the same thing, introducing them to this idea of professionalism.
And we're going to jump into professionalism, but before you even go there, how do you explain the importance of an internship to college students? Like, how are you selling them in on the concept to begin with?
Well, basically, they face three problems. Right? The first problem is that while they learn all kinds of stuff at school, they really don't know what media is about, whether it's PR or journalism. What happens in the real world, as you know, doesn't relate to what they're learning. So how do we bridge that? The second thing is that it's that old trope, right? You can't get a job without experience, and you can't get experience without the job. And so what I describe it is we're the escalator. We put them on the escalator going ahead. So many of these kids come in without internships or they've done some kind of remote thing, right? And
Yeah.
then the third one is that they basically have to learn a whole new set of mores and what the media really is or how they have to behave is unlike anything they've been prepared for. Can't blame colleges. That's not really what they're designed to do. But so this is why your internship. You got to be able to make the leap. You've got to, you're going to want to get a job. And basically, you need the skills, which we're going to be talking about, to do that they don't have.
I'm going to push it a little bit further, and I'm going to say that ultimately these are real world experiences, obviously, which is a huge benefit to getting a full-time job. But I want to say flat out at the beginning, the reason why you want these internships is for the positive referral. So that means that the experience that they have and the experience they project, this professionalism topic is really important today because that referral is the key to getting a full-time job. And that referral is really the beginning of networking, right? And the whole
Absolutely.
idea that every contact that you make is a network, and that old adage of it's not what you know, it's who you know, and that's the truth be told about getting jobs in the future, don't you think?
I, absolutely. And in the process of it, it's also getting to know who the hell they are as people, as adults. So, but yes, if you got to get, as I say, you got to get on the escalator. You got to have that person who's going to vouch for you. And how many jobs have you seen hired recently that didn't come because basically somebody knew somebody at some point along the way?
It's, to be honest with you, it's very rare that I'll just grab a blind resume.
Yeah.
It's usually some sort of referral. Or if I get, 50, 60, 75 resumes in, you spend an average of 6 seconds, maybe 6 to 8 seconds, I think is the number, looking at the resume. Referrals are extremely important.
I don't know any job recently that I can at any level, I can tell you right now, that is a cold hire.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about resumes another time.
Indeed.
But today we're going to talk about professionalism. So, how would you define professionalism?
Yeah, it covers a whole bunch of things. It's the hard skills and the soft skills, right? And I know, and basically it covers how you do what you're able to do, and that sort of sums up everything. So, doesn't matter how skilled you are at doing something, if you don't have the ability to communicate, work, and behave professionally, your skills come to nothing. So you have to have both.
We talked a little bit about in a previous call expectations. So professionalism is a lot about expectations from my perspective as a hiring manager or someone who's going to hire an intern. I have various expectations. So let's talk about first, like what are the key elements of professionalism in the marketplace?
Well, can we start somewhere first, right? Which is what I want to start with is what the kids, forgive me, what these young students understand it to be. And the problem is, and is that we're at two different parts of the world. You're hiring them and running them as the employer. I'm the one on the other side who sees them come in and got to get them to a point where they're going to be useful and functional and ability to actually deliver something to you. There's some advantage to what they're doing for them to be able to get the experience.
Yeah.
So, but I would start with the point is, what do they understand? What are their expectations? And that's the key problem, is that for them, especially in this post-COVID generation, what they understand to be acceptable behavior just has no relationship to what happens in the real world today.
Is it worth exploring what those things are? What are you hearing from the students? And where is this coming from? Is this perceptions? Are they not taught any of these things?
They're not taught any of these things. It starts with accountability.
Yeah.
There's so little accountability now in education at any level. The kids aren't, there's nothing to hold them to perform. The way the grading systems work, it's mediocrity
Depends on the
is
school. Depends on the school. And
absolutely depends on the school, but increasingly a lot of the students are heading for the safe B, right? And to get by, they don't want to hurt themselves by risking, so they're risk averse. I would say part of it is that from a personal perspective, they've been it's been reaffirmed, and this is everywhere, that they're not ready for disappointment. That disappointment isn't something they should have to suffer, and if they do, it often and I don't want to cheapen it, but it comes into issues of mental health and other issues, which cheapens really significant mental health issues. But so they're not used to disappointment. The idea is that the employer is meant to meet them where they are, and
Mhm.
their interests and their feelings and their sense of engagement, accomplishment matter, right? Which, frankly, in most workplaces, they don't. And so there's this whole focus on the me of this,
Yeah.
which now again, I want to be very clear. This is not to say that that students today have a chronic flaw, that this is something that they're incapable of overcoming, that they're a lost cause. Completely the opposite. The way I equate it today is that it's the person going into the gym for the first time. But instead of not having worked out since they were on a local team, these guys haven't ever worked out. So the idea of lifting weights or doing sit-ups or doing the uncomfortable stuff to have the outcome, that is a new concept to them. So then the question becomes, okay, so it's actually starting at the very beginning. What is professionalism? And rather than asking what I think it is, I'd actually ask, you're the one that I've got to get them ready for. So
Yeah.
how do you define it?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about, I mean, professionalism is a whole range of things that we're going to talk about in terms of hard and soft skills, in terms of getting people ready to work in a professional environment. So I think let's talk about expectations. And
Okay.
for me, for someone who hires interns, my basic expectations for an intern are someone who's punctual, they're on time, they show respect for other people's time. They're reliable, accountable, and trustworthy. All those things go hand in hand. You demonstrate that you're accountable by delivering what you have committed to, which builds trust, right, in the relationship. And emotional intelligence, which is a big topic that we talk a lot about in terms of, can you manage your own emotions? Do you have basic social skills? Do you show empathy? Do you have motivation? But most importantly, and you and I talked about this, is communication skills. How you present yourself verbally and in writing. How you present yourself means a lot of things, dressing, how you dress, maintaining good hygiene, which contributes to a professional image. And I'm going to give you some examples that may sound silly, but there are some things that maybe have not been really spelled out, right? So I don't expect an intern to wear a t-shirt, a hoodie, a baseball cap, flip-flops, sandals to work. That's a red flag. To me, that shows disrespect. Um, wear deodorant. That's a basic one, but it's had to be a conversation in the past. It really has.
Yep. Yep.
That also applies if you're working online. You and I chatted about this the other day. Your backdrop. If I don't want to see your unmade bed behind you, I want to make sure that what you're wearing from the top up also matters. I don't want you having your baseball cap on and lounging on the couch. You're still at a job, right? Regardless of how and where you're showing up to that job. So those are some basic expectations, and I want to talk a little bit about kind of like expand on this about acceptable and unacceptable behaviors. So those are expectations. Can we talk a little bit about like what your list of unacceptable behaviors are outside of what we've already talked about?
Okay, so my unacceptable behaviors start with, as you say, punctuality, right? It's the simplest things. Punctuality. Um, I put a lot of it under respect,
Yes.
right? So it can be a respect for a person, a respect for a place. Place. The thing that you talk about of dress and attire. I have a rule when we go to the White House or the Pentagon or the Capitol. Doesn't matter who's in power. It has nothing to do with power. These are places. These are the temples of the United States, right? And
Yeah.
they should be respected. You have no idea that even though I say come properly dressed, men don't wear sneakers, and they come in sneakers and they say, well, that's all I got. And I'm like, you don't get to do that, right? That's the point that I say is this idea of you're not good enough, you're not too good for anything. It's this line of
Yes.
you say yes until you've earned the right to say no, and none of them will have earned the right to say no to anything in the program, right?
Yes.
Um, so and then there's personal space, right? That your boss, your superior, whoever they are, even if they're just one step ahead of you, you need to respect their personal space, be it physically or online. Right. So you're not going to be chummy. One of the things, an example is when people ask to be LinkedIn friends accepted within a week of starting someplace. It's like when I see that, even as a student, I'm like, no, we're not doing that. Right. So a lot of those are key. Right. And as you say, just the presentation. I say it's all about first impressions. That
Sure.
you that perception is not 9/10 of the law. Perception is the law, and the perception that you make on that first encounter will be the perception that will endure, no matter what they do, how good they see themselves. So I'm you ticked off a bunch of things. I agree with all of those, but it sort of comes back down to very simply. It starts with basically respect for the people who work around you, respect for the fact that you are at the bottom of the heap and nothing. You have the right to nothing. So expect nothing and you're not going to be disappointed. Expect something more, you can disappoint others.
That's absolutely true. And I wanted to mention a couple of actual intern quotes of things that interns have said to me and in the past. And one was, I'm not interested in doing that.
Oh God. Oh God. Oh God, I
Another
hate it.
one was, that is beneath me. And
That's
and so you have to start somewhere. And so that to me falls in the bad negative attitude category. And so you're not going to go very far if that's your attitude walking into an internship. There's this quote that I love by Herb Keller. It says, "You don't hire for skills, you hire for attitude. You can always teach skills." So to me, that's something when someone comes in with a really positive attitude and they're curious and then they're enthusiastic, I can teach them anything I want in an internship, right? And we're going to roll into hard skills and soft skills in a minute. But the attitude is really important.
right. And the idea also, what I say to the folks is that, it's, they're here. I have them for 16 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And what I say to them is 16 weeks is no time at all. But in some ways, it's a long time. What I urge all the students to do is to do something they've never done before, which
Yeah.
is to be strategic, to look at this, and you go in and see and spend the first week just watching, right?
Yeah.
And then go and seek out the things that nobody wants to do because everybody is overworked and under resourced, and you start to earn it. And what I say to them is, what your goal is to become to that point where you become furniture. And that's my line. And they all look at me like, what do I mean? And what I say is, when you go into a room, you sit down, you don't think about the furniture. The chair's going to hold your weight, it's going to do its job. That's what you want to become. You don't want to become the intern who is the high maintenance that you take people's time. You want to be that person who's just always there. As I say, you want to stop being the intern and start and become, hey, where's Jane or where's John? Right? Where is the by name? You want to, I know an internship's been successful if I get calls saying, when's my next? And say the name of that. And that is because they've done all the things that you've talked about. And that's sort of the end goal. They have to understand that professionalism is about the end goal, at
Yes.
least from my perspective. You want them, as you say, to get that resume. You want to be that first stop on that ladder, or if you've been on one or two, the accelerator. But you're right. You hit the very key things. Mine is sort of trying to get them to change their mindset.
Yeah.
That's what they need.
That's what I want to talk about next. I mean, how else do you get them there to change the mindset? Obviously, then other than having kind of a professionalism 101 seminar at the beginning of your internship experiences, how do you get them to change their mindset? I mean, over the years, based on your experience, does that happen through the context of an interview? Do they not take it from you in essence as a teacher or professor, or when they're more likely to take it from a potential employer? How does that work?
Okay, so this is where I think everybody has misunderstood what experiential learning is, right? So most people think experiential learning is you do an internship and you do some courses, right? And the answer is no, that's just an internship with a couple of courses. The idea, so what we do is everything that we teach is wrapped around the idea of accelerating their performance.
Yeah.
So every day that I see them in class, I or the other faculty, we're asking them, what are they doing? What have they experienced? What are they learning? What are the issues they're having there? What have they experienced? And then giving them the feedback on that experience and putting it in the context. The biggest thing though that we do is that in the work that we do outside is driving this idea of accountability,
Yes.
that it's not about you, right? You've got to do the best job you can to satisfy the audience, and the audience can be the people who you're working with, it can be the boss, it can be, if you're doing media, the people who are watching it. But how do you drive accountability? And the idea is, the tandem is, they have what's happening in work, and then you get them to come back and consider that and think about that, and to see other impulses so they can understand a bit more. They can put some context to what they're seeing at the internship. Generally what happens is that it sort of sneaks up on them, right? I'm with you. I, we do we talk about being a great intern. We talk about what you need to do to be successful. We talk about those soft skills and hard skills. um they don't pay any attention. It doesn't mean anything until they're in the workplace, and then you can come back and you
Yeah.
reinforce them, and time again. So it it's the balance. From my perspective, it's, I'm always pushing them, I'm always urging them, I'm trying to get them to take more responsibilities across the board, but also to risk, right? To be able to contribute, to try things, to grow, right? To
And
try for that.
it's your experiential point. So you can teach them all you want, but they're not going to really learn it until they experience it, what it's really like in a live environment, and they receive feedback, positive and negative, on their performance, right?
The negative is the most important, because if they're only receiving positive feedback, they're not growing, they're
Sure.
not learning. And so it's a matter of trying to get them to understand that negative feedback is actually positive, because it's helping them grow,
Yeah.
right? There is, which is which happens to be one of the negative sides of our current grading system, because if you do badly, your GPA is gone and you're messed up. So there's no room to do badly.
Yeah.
Right. And so but we know in the workplace, half the time I look at when they started internships, I said, on the first day, you're a blithering idiot. Right? I don't care how smart you are. You can have a Nobel Prize for whatever. You're still a blithering idiot because you don't know the organization. So you got to, and you're going to make mistakes. Okay. That's fine. What we say to them is, if you make a mistake, it's, what did I do wrong? Well, first of all, I'm sorry. What did I do wrong? It will never happen again. And that's it. It never happens again. And then you move on.
Well, that's a good segue into hard and soft skills. Hard skills are basically, those technical abilities that you need. What are the basic hard skills that you see or almost require for people to get an internship today in your program?
Well, it varies, right? Because every industry is slightly different, right? So if you're going into journalism, you need to have writing clips, you have to have stories, you have to show that you can write and deliver a coherent story. And now increasingly, you have to also be able to show that you can edit video.
Yeah.
Right. If you're going into production, you need to show a higher level of hard skills video, better editing, After Effects, and those skills. Preferably also audio.
Yeah.
Right. And understanding the difference between video and audio. Right. If you're going into PR, you need to have the skills to be able to do the Excels, do the kind of support you're going to be able to do. You need to be able to show that you can write that kind of thing. And you also need to have it's preferable if you have understanding of some kind of databases that work for where they are. Right. If you're going to Capitol Hill, if you want to do a press, you need to know your politics. Right. You need to know what the issues are. You're not going to know how it works because most of them haven't worked on the Hill. But you need, and that the hard skill there is you need that political bone. Right. Unless you're a student government or somebody who only thinks about politics all day. In that case, that to me is the hard skill you need for me to go, we're going to get you a place on the Hill. So it varies, right? Now, there are some across the board. People should know social media. Any of this generation has to, as a basis, understand how these, but they all do, right?
Sure.
Right. They should all understand photography, but they all understand photography because they've all taken pictures and posted them, right?
Sure.
These are passive knowledge, passive hard skills, which part of what our program is. We describe it as turning passive to active knowledge, so that they don't go when somebody says, "Oh, we don't have anybody to take a picture. Can you just come and take some photos here?" We need them to go, "Yeah." Now, increasingly, we need them to also know some AI.
Sure.
Familiarity with AI, and a separator is a touch of coding.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are, but as I say, it varies depending where they're going.
There's a couple of things that we talked about earlier. One was you talked about how everything is a tool and the Batman's
Oh,
utility.
yes.
Can you explain that?
Sure. So the idea is you just asked what the hard skills are for each of those professions. And what we say to them is, but you want to have all of them. Well, our ethos here is expert in one, professional in all. So that if you're going to go into PR, you better be able to edit the video. If you're going to be a video content creator, you better be able to write the press release, right? So the idea is that you can do it all. My favorite story here is of one student who hated production. She was PR, hated production. And she did and one of the things we do is we do a lighting workshop, basic lighting, 3-point lighting. If you don't know what it is, it's very simple the simplest way to do a lighting setup. She was working at her internship had turned into a job, and she was working there, and she was asked to come on the shoot for one of the clients, and the cameraman, who I actually knew, who was not very good, couldn't make it look right. It looked awful. And she said, and everybody was losing their minds. And she goes, well, why don't we just try simple 3-point lighting here and set up a light? And it looked great, right? This is a woman who never wanted to do production. After that, she was promoted and put in charge of all production for all of the clients because she had simply taken a workshop, new 3-point lighting. So the Batman's tool belt has a boomerang. This came from a former colleague of mine, as he pointed out. Batman has a utility belt, and there's a boomerang. Who the hell needs a boomerang except for that one episode when Batman needed the boomerang? So, and that's how we try and show them. And as that old line of, I'm not interested in video, I'm not interested in photography, I'm not interested. Yeah, but you never know when somebody else will be.
Yes.
And that's why you want.
The other thing that you said that I thought was really important in terms of communication, you talked about how writing is thinking. Can you expand on that?
So I think people don't teach writing correctly, right? Writing is just the act of actually putting down words on a paper it's a hard skill of typing,
Yeah.
right? What writing really is about, and to me, it's both a hard and a soft skill. It's the ultimate hard and soft skill. Why? Because writing isn't about putting words on the page. Writing is about being able to think coherently, to gather information, sort information, and then the writing is delivering the information. Right? That's we say that's what the program is. It's not about journalism. It's not about PR. It's about information gathering, sorting, and delivery of information. Writing is the exercise of, you cannot write well unless you can think clearly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, your writing is going to be crap. And so the idea for us is every type piece of writing that you do has to start with the thinking. What is the client? We teach something. It's slightly different. It's the 3 W's, right? Who, what, why. Who is this thing for? What is it they need? And why do they need it? And if you think on that on anything that you write, that will define how you organize your thoughts. And then, as I say, then it's just a matter of hitting keys or using one of those antique things called a pen, to actually put it down.
I love that. Well, let's slide into soft skills, and we've talked about this a little bit already in terms of what are those basic interpersonal abilities. But I think
Can I just say something about the soft skills? What I find most hilarious about what we're talking about is you and I have both experienced this. It's not that they're bad. They're not bad kids, right? They're not. They just don't know, right? They don't know deodorant. They don't know wearing a hoodie isn't appropriate. They don't know that communication with somebody in a hierarchy, you need to be clear. It's not about them. They don't know, right? I actually look. As I said, a lot of my graduates, recent ones, have gone on to do unbelievable stuff that have outshone my career, which was pretty good. I was happy. These kids are doing amazing things. It's not that they don't have the capabilities, right? It's that the ones who want to get in the gym and work, they are as talented and as motivated as you and I were, right? Every generation has them. That's not the point. I love it when I look on a resume, and this isn't a resume thing, but they have all these soft skills written down, and I'm like,
prove
I'm
it.
punctual. I'm like, well, they're going to know that on the first day, right?
Yeah.
I work hard. Well, that's going to be for them to decide. I get along with people. Well, you'll find out, won't you? And it's like these words don't mean anything, and these kids have been told that they need to put them in because they were on some kind of template, but they don't really know what they mean. And here's how I know, because the kids who have done something, the kids who come in with that thing, they don't put that stuff down because they know it's silly. They don't need to say they're going to work hard. Their stuff shows it. Sorry.
No. And a lot of this is the idea of showcasing your value. Instead of saying it, you're showcasing your value. So how do you showcase your value?
The challenge, okay, so this is where my side of the picture comes in, is that basically the kids, that's in where we place the interns, right? Because a lot of it is so out of their control. If they come to an organization that may be, I've had internships which are regular places that are absolutely brilliant, but then they're in a lull and the student goes and they have an absolutely awful time because they're not having the opportunity previous people have had. So basically the opportunity, it's part of it's out of their hand. But then what is the opportunity once you get in there? It's what I say, being strategic. You prove it by going above and beyond.
Yeah.
You find, as I say, what they want to do within the first 2 weeks is find the stuff that nobody wants to do and is being neglected, and go do it. Right? It's that wonderful scene in have you seen the show, the movie The Intern?
Yeah.
With, right, when he goes, the old guy goes and he cleans the table up, right? That the
Yeah.
boss has been complaining. Boom, and that's it. Right? Cleans the table. Perfect example. I had student working starting at she was meant to start on a Monday, and it was one of the last blizzards that came in. And it was a snow blizzard. I said, you call up and you find out whether you can go in on the Saturday, because other people aren't. They're going to take the excuse not to go in. If you go in, you're going to get an advantage and you're going to be seen. She had an amazing internship. By the time all the other interns had started, she had been there. The news director knew who she was. Everybody knew who she was. And she got to do things nobody else did because she had taken advantage of the opportunity that was there.
Yes.
And so that's it. It's looking for the opportunities. And as I say, and then when you do get something, yes, right? It's you don't have you don't say no until you've earned the right to say no. You say yes. And so if you say yes to everything, the opportunities will come to you.
But you make an important point about how to make yourself visible, because that intern made herself visible, right?
Yes.
Um, and so you need to take the hard projects to get noticed. You need to be memorable in some positive way, become indispensable. And how do you become indispensable? Do you have some special skill that you're really great at? So for me, the kids that are great at Microsoft Excel, that are total gurus with spreadsheets. Oh my God, I adore them because I need that. That's an important skill. And most of them have that today. But then can they take that data and visualize it in charts or graphs? That's like, okay, so become the spreadsheet guru. Are you good at online research? Become the online research guru. And amplify that. Take what your skill is to make sure that you're the go-to person for XYZ. And so that's how you really showcase your own talent and become visible.
Well, and what you just said exactly what illustrated exactly what I was talking about being strategic, right? So if they're in your presence, if they work with you for the first 2 weeks, they know that they're going to find out fairly quickly that is what you prize,
Yes.
and then you dive into that, right? And I had an internship this last fall. Had no idea what he wanted to do, no idea. He had been sort of into sports coaching, but didn't know what it was. Got him with this group called District Sports, which is a recreational soccer league, but it's actually a big business. He went in there, and one of the first things they asked him to do was to simply crunch the numbers so they could work out what the value of each player was. He had no idea how to do this. No idea. He's doing valuations on this stuff. But, they showed him a little bit. He Googled it. He worked it out, and he did this. They were blown away. Then they were like, well, he's from an area outside DC called Montgomery County, right, just outside. They were thinking of expanding it. So he just went out and found out all the fields that exist and then started calling up. And then he called up a bunch of schools which had fields, and they said no, or we work with them. And he went. And so and after that, they just kept giving him more and more opportunity because he had said yes, done it, delivered, and then kept finding out and stepping into the breach, as you said, because that's what they did. But what they needed of him, what isn't what you would need of somebody, or what somebody at a television network would need, or somebody who was doing an event planning internship, right? It's about, this is where the professionalism becomes, and that's, if they can learn that early, that saves them the rest of life. When you started in San Francisco, when you built up the bureau in San Francisco, didn't you do that? You found the opportunities, you developed the opportunities, and you just do what Kelly Poe does better than anybody else in the world, right? And you just did what you do. And that's what's happened with the students who've come through, who've gone on to do great things, is they look for those opportunities and then they run at them as hard as they can.
Maximizing that utility belt, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
I've definitely had interns where they've come in and fallen into projects, just like you said, and then found their passion, that they were interested in something through the process of doing that. And so I think the one thing that's important is I can't even say it. Adaptability is, change is constant. So you might come into an internship and have a list of all your to-do lists of things that you're going to need to do, but a new client comes along, a new project comes along, a project gets pulled away. And so, things that you might have, projects you might be working on could be killed in an instant. And because priorities shift, right? And so, you have to be able to accept that. And because that's real life, that's real work, and accept that feedback and those unexpected challenges.
And then one of the soft/hard skills, this is where they come together, is one of the things that we focus on. And so I say to the students, so who is your competition? And they cite some other student, or somebody said, no, your competition is the sixth grader who's coming up, who's learning all these new technologies, right? So you need to be able to adapt. And so a lot of what we do in our program is, students like to have a syllabus so that they know exactly what coming and prepare. What we do is we throw technology at them, throw cameras, throw other equipment at them, give a basic training, and then tell them to deliver, right? So the idea is they get adaptable, they get used to the idea of, oh my God, I have no idea how to do this, but I have to deliver that. And then I say about halfway through the semester, okay, how many of you have had things at work when things were thrown at you that you had absolutely no idea on how to do, right? And this is the soft, hard skills. And all of them put up their hands, right? And I said, and how did it go? And they're like, well, you did it to us first, right? So
Yeah.
it's that adaptability combined. So that's the adaptability, which is the soft skill, with the hard skill of the ability to embrace a technology or something they don't know how to use, and work out, embrace it, and solve the problem.
Yeah.
And that's where the two come together. And these guys, this generation, they're really capable of doing that.
Sure.
They haven't, it's not in curriculum. It's not what schools do. It's not what they've seen anywhere else along. I mean, so look, remember when Facebook first began, or we started doing social media and they came up and it's like, what is this strange thing? TikTok comes up and there'll be something after. These guys, they adapt to the technology so much more quickly. And that's where the hard and soft skills, but they have to be willing to keep moving. They have to be willing to know that what they're doing today isn't right. As you say, the project can go away tomorrow, right? And how do you deal with that thing that you spent all your time and suddenly, no, we're done with that, right? And that is something that, again, I always sound really negative to begin with, because they're unprepared. They're unprepared for people. Like, even the best ones are unprepared. I mean, I've had the great pleasure, honor, and you've been generous in taking interns over the time. All of them learn so much, but part of it is I know what they're getting from you. And so then I'm able to work on the front end to accelerate their performance with you, to embrace those challenges and embrace whatever it is. It's the mattress project or whatever that they come into, to understand why it's important and why it's important for them.
I love it. So we've covered most of the soft skills, communication, which is really number one, right? a little bit about teamwork and collaboration. You need to work well in a team. You need to be able to have those interpersonal skills like empathy and active listening, conflict resolution, avoiding politics, which is another one that can be a big challenge
Oh,
for
wow.
everybody, not just
Ye-
interns.
Yes.
But then the final one for me is positive energy. And you and I talked about this a little bit in terms of some interns that got it and some that don't. And from my perspective, as a person who works in an agency, we love it when interns come because they bring in this fresh energy and this excitement, and they look at things in a completely different way. And so it becomes positive energy, right? And so that's kind of what we are expecting. Are you bringing that? You're not, you shouldn't be jaded yet. You're an intern, right?
Right.
You've been there for the 30 years the way we have. And so, part of your job is to bring that positive energy to lighten and brighten the office. And a part of that is confidence, showing that you are confident, you're confident but not overconfident, right? And there's a line there, a
Very,
very
very,
gray line, because
very
you
much so.
still have to be able to show that you've got the ability to learn. You should be confident in your current abilities about what you know, whatever they may be, but willing to learn and not be overconfident.
I, absolutely. And a part of it to me is also, I mean, for me, this is where my job begins, right? And so it's the internship placement, right?
Yeah.
That conversation, because part of the problem, we're talking about professionalism here. Part of the problem is that so many of these students only know, or they only think the opportunities that are there for them are the two or three they've heard about in school or somehow somewhere along. So part of it, and most of the time, and we spend a lot of time in this project helping what I call as people are speeding along a runway, a freeway, but they they're people who are studying journalism and should never be a journalist, or people who've gotten into PR and shouldn't be there. So part of what we do is helping them find which freeway they should be on and helping them get on the off ramp on the other one. So part of what I hope for when I send somebody to you is that I've already worked with them so that they're the right kind of person for you. And part of and it's not just having an internship, right? It's not just doing that, because then what they're going to do is they're going to pursue that and they're going to go into a career that frankly they're going to hate, and they're going to hate going to work. They have to actually be somewhat interested. And so if we can find the internships that fit where they are, they're going to have that interest because they're finally start, oh wow, I'm actually interested in this. Right. And part of what we do is if it's not working, we will shift them, right? If it's not working as an internship. But so the energy is vital, but part of that is helping the students. This is about finding themselves,
Yeah.
helping them work out what they really want to do, which generally 4/5 of the time is not what they think they want to do, right? So that by the time they get to you, or they get to the newspaper, or they get to whatever they're going to, they have a sense of, oh, this is why I'm doing that. Just to sum up with journalists, for example, what I say to a lot of people, because I'm pretty good at working out who's a journalist. I call journalism is not a career path; it's a psychosis, right? And it's for and I'm pretty good at identifying them. But for most of the kids, they love journalism, but they don't know why. And that's part of what the internship is, working out why they love this. Why are they going to commit?
You know that me and my husband and my son we're all journalism majors.
But,
So I guess we all have a psychosis.
but you went in a different direction,
I did, and so did my
right?
husband. That was
Right?
my son,
Well,
but
he sort of did, but sort of didn't, right? He's closest to it, right? Right?
anyway, it's funny. So let's close this out about any final advice for interns aspiring to demonstrate professionalism. And I'm going to do mine first so you can kind of have the final word. And the first one is, seeking out mentors. Everyone likes to be asked for advice, really. So don't be afraid to confidently, but not overconfidently, ask for advice. People want to give out advice. So you can find your mentor with an internship, and you really should. And then, other than being visible, which we talked a lot about, demonstrate your drive and your passion. Drive is about following through and going the extra mile and striving for excellence. Passion is really about enthusiasm and excitement for what you do, and you have it or you don't. And so, we want to hire people that have both.
So there's a wonderful line that I always say is that if you want a job, ask for advice, and if you want advice, ask for a job, right? And so to me, the biggest thing that I say about about the professionalism and the hard and the soft skills is it's about expectations, and it's their expectations of how the world is or should respond to them. And we need to flip that, right? It's not about what they want. It's as I say to them about interviews. Everybody goes into an interview and they say, an interview is, I say, who's about? And they say, it's about me. And the answer is, no, it's not about you. When you go to an internship or you go to an interview, it's not about you, it's about them, right? Are you somebody that they want to work with? Are you somebody they want to bring onto their
Yeah.
and that everything you do, your interests is having them feel very lucky that you're the person who landed on their doorstep. And to do that, you have to do all the other things you mentioned. But it all starts with the expectation. You don't matter. You've got to make them feel that you're the best thing that happened to them.
Got it. Well, thank you so much for your time today, and I'm really
My,
excited to see what people say.
me too. Me too. And I look forward to seeing the feedback.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.